Okay, let's talk about troubleshooting Linux when you can't get into the system. This is what happened to me yesterday and this morning. I was able to choose Linux from the grub menu, and it would act like it was loading the hard drive, and then the monitor would turn off. And I couldn't get into the system, I couldn't do anything, so I had to go through some troubleshooting to fix the problem. And we're going to break it down to three big steps, and then I'm going to explain exactly what happened to me. Step number one: what was the last thing in your system that has changed? Now, this was an easy one for me to figure out. Let's back up. I'll tell you a little bit about the story. I'm going to be getting a new computer, and by getting, I mean building. I've ordered some parts. They should be here sometime this weekend, and I'll put it all together and have a nice modern system. But I didn't want to replace everything. The system that I've been using is certainly dated, but there are some parts that I can scavenge, and one of those is the case. So what I did yesterday was move all of the parts of my current system out of the case where they were into a much older case that's still fine for an old system. I moved the motherboard, the main drive. That's pretty much it. Just the motherboard and the main drive made the move. I had intended to move the video card as well, but what I found out was the video card I'm using was too big to fit into the older case. It is a very long video card, and the case that I had, while it's ATX size and has plenty of room, didn't have quite enough room for the length of that particular card. So I had an old GeForce GTX 460 laying around from the last time I replaced cards, and I just snapped that into the current motherboard and went on about my way. Made sure everything posted, got to grub, and it went to a black screen. So in this instance, it was pretty obvious that the video card was the issue. If possible, I would have undid what I did and have everything the same, but there was just no way that I could plug in that video card that I had been using. Also, if possible, I would have planned ahead and would have uninstalled the drivers for the video card I had been using and installed drivers for the new old video card that I'm currently using. I would have done that all in the old case prior to the migration, but I didn't know it was going to be an issue until my motherboard was screwed into this old case, and it became pretty obvious pretty fast that I was going to have to use a different card. So the solution was obvious: install the old video drivers. But how on earth am I going to do that if I can't even get it to boot into Linux? That brings us to troubleshooting step number 2. Figure out the best way to access your system. In Linux, there's a plethora of ways you can get in there. What I found was that since the monitor turned all the way off and didn't even stay on to give me any video signal, I couldn't do what would have been ideal. Holding down Control-Alt F2 or F3 will load a terminal without going into the graphical environment. Or actually, it'll switch out of the graphical environment to bring you to a full text terminal screen. Since I didn't even have video at all at this point, I couldn't do that. So what I found was that on the grub menu, press E, and that brings up all the arguments that the bootloader is loading. One of them is the Linux line. That's all your system information. If at the end of that line, you type in init equals /bin/sh, that tells it just load into a shell environment. It's just the text. And that's what I needed. There are some other ways you can get there, but this is the way that worked for me. Now I'm booted and I'm in a text environment. What am I going to do now? I'm going to uninstall all of my AMD drivers because they're not going to work with my current card. So In Arch, I'm using the Pacman. I use Pacman minus capital R, lowercase n, lowercase s, and go down the list of the AMD drivers. Uninstalled everything that had anything to do with AMD on it. Got it out of there. Then I went to install the NVIDIA drivers. What I found out was that I'm booted into an emergency mode that does not have networking. So I cannot download or install the NVIDIA drivers. What am I going to do now? Well, can I enable the networking? I did a lot of searching on that. What I found is in this emergency mode, it's disabled the networking interface altogether. So I can't enable the networking. So now I'm on a system with no video drivers. So I reboot, hope for the best, hope that Linux will see I don't have video drivers, but I have a video card, and load some default drivers out of the terminal. In this instance, that did not work. I'm still having the same exact issue. What do I do now? And that'll bring us to step 3 in our troubleshooting. If nothing else works, can you boot into a live environment from install media? Because from there, you can really fix almost anything. So I did that. I had a USB stick laying around that had Manjaro's install media. Put that in, booted off the USB, and same thing. Nothing. It would get to the essentially the grub menu of the install media, but when you tried to load the live environment, the monitor would shut off. So I did some searching. I found that initial menu on the Manjaro installer had an option for video drivers that let you choose free or non-free. I switched that to non-free and was able to boot into the Manjaro live environment. So now we have access to our system in full with internet. So now we're talking. We can actually get this thing resolved. So log in there, get to that terminal. Manjaro's installer includes the gparted software. I load that up and see the identifier for my root drive. And I go to mount that into a rescue folder. So go to terminal, create a new folder called rescue, mount my root partition into that, and do a chmod, change mod, into my new rescue partition. And now I'm at a command prompt in my existing system with network access. So I feel good. I do a Pacman minus capital S, NVIDIA-390XX, which are the drivers for this particular old video card. And nothing. So that brings us to number 4. Do the wrong thing until you do the right thing. You can kind of tell from the story so far, I've been stumbling my way through this, bumping into walls, until I got through it and got this thing working. So what that means is I did some more searching. I found on the Arch wiki page that in order for everything to work, I need more than just the root system installed. They have a tool called arch-chroot. So I installed that. That was part of Arch install scripts. So in order to get that installed, I exit out of my chroot. So now I'm back in the install media. I'm back in Manjaro's command prompts. From there, I can use Pacman to install arch-install-scripts. Now I have arch-chroot. Now I can use that to mount my existing file system into the rescue folder. And when I do that, it mounts everything else that I need as well. So thank God for whoever developed that script. It was a lifesaver today for me. So now I'm chrooted into my existing file system. I'm admin. I have all the access I need, and I can install the video driver. And it installs successfully. I install several other NVIDIA packages. Everything's going smoothly. Everything looks like it's installed. And everything looks good. So, pull out the USB, reboot, get to Grub, select my Arch Linux, and it boots further. The screen doesn't turn off. Everything's looking good. But it starts a 90-second clock looking for a drive that's not there because it's still in the other case because it's going to be part of my new system. It's just a media drive. It's 3 terabytes. It's there are no system files on it. It's nothing that this Linux needs, but it's part of the fstab file. It's part of the file system table that it thinks is necessary. So it's trying to load it and it's not there. And when that 90 seconds times out, and it can't mount that drive, it freaks out. It gives me the option to log in as root, which I do, and I'm back at the terminal again. So luckily, it's pretty clear what the problem is now. Again, do the wrong thing until you do the right thing. I open a text editor, vim, etc, fstab, and I comment out the line of that file that refers to the drive that's not there. Save, exit, reboot, and that did it. Got back into my system. Everything is here. Everything's working just as it always was. And all it took was some troubleshooting and bumbling and fumbling around. And I no longer have a black screen. It works just as fast as it did before. So, just to review real quick, 4 big troubleshooting steps that are going to save your life. What's the last thing that has changed? Can it be undone? That will solve 90% of your problems. If you mess something up, just undo what you messed up. But if you can't, figure out a way to get into the system. Can you use that Control-Alt-F? Can you get to an emergency prompt? Number 3, if you can't get into the system as it is, can you get in another way through live media of a Linux installer? That is a godsend that these USB sticks to live environments exist. If you can get into those, you can fix darn near anything. And once you're in there, once you have the access you need, just keep doing the wrong thing until you do the right thing, and you can solve pretty much anything. Google is your friend. There are communities out there with people that are very knowledgeable. There are wikis out there with all the information that you need. You're not going to run into a problem that somebody hasn't run into and solved. So just follow that 4 steps. You will be troubleshooting Linux in no time, and you will have your broken system fixed. And when it's fixed, it feels good. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope you guys are doing good. I'll see you next time.